Okay, so Mayfair Witches, Season 2, Episode 2. It's a lot. Seriously. We're seeing characters we care about die. Alliances are falling apart, and it feels like everyone's making the worst possible decisions. This episode is called 10 of Swords, and it lives up to its name. Things get messy. We've got Lasher, who's basically a walking disaster, and the Mayfair Witches are in chaos trying to stop him. Even though they kind of also want him? Confusing, right? We're left wondering if this family can actually save themselves, or are they too messed up to win this fight? Basically, this episode is all about being trapped. The Mayfair Witches are stuck dealing with their family's messed up past and this creepy Lasher guy, who they're weirdly drawn to. They're fighting against what's expected of them and trying to make their own choices, but it's like they're constantly being pulled back in. It's a messy fight between what they should do and what they actually want. And that's what makes this episode a total roller coaster. The episode throws us into the thick of it with more casualties, questionable decisions, and a whole lot of internal conflict. We're left wondering what the witches are supposed to do and how this family is going to survive the mess they're in. The episode doesn't waste time before hitting us with some serious losses, starting with the brutal death of Gifford Mayfair. What's striking is how casually she's introduced in the episode, almost like she's just another name on a list. It's clear that Lasher, with his monstrous charm, is the one responsible. Her demise feels less like a dramatic turning point and more like another notch on Lasher's belt, serving as a chilling reminder of his power and ruthlessness and his ability to manipulate the Mayfair women. We see how his mere presence drives them into a frenzy. It highlights the dangerous allure he holds over them, leaving them vulnerable and susceptible. Gifford's death is a gut punch that shows just how easily life is snuffed out in this world. Then, just when we think the episode can't get any darker, we're slapped with the death of Alicia, Moira's mother. This one is even more of a shock because she is someone we've seen around since the beginning of the show. Her death is not just brutal, but also makes way for Moira's storyline to move forward. Her death, just like Gifford's, is a way for the writers to advance the plot, but the lack of development for both characters and the feeling of wasted potential is palpable. What makes this death sting more is the way Moira finds her in a pool of blood, adding to the grim reality of this episode. It was clear that the show wanted to give that extra emotional punch. These deaths, while shocking, also feel a bit cheap. They're clearly meant to push the narrative forward, but they lack the emotional depth they deserve. They make us wonder why the writers are killing off these characters and whether this means the series will become a bloodbath. These deaths, especially Alicia's, show just how callous the show can be, with characters being mere pawns in a larger, often poorly executed game. The squandered potential of Gifford and the sudden demise of Alicia leave a lingering feeling of dissatisfaction, like the show is sacrificing characters for shock value. Lasher continues to be a fascinatingly terrifying character. His actions are erratic, driven by what seems like a mix of primal instinct and a warped desire for connection with the Mayfair women. He's not just a monster, he's also an entity that has a disturbing attraction to the women of this family. It's as if his very essence is tied to their bloodline, creating a toxic codependency that the series seems keen on exploring. He's both a threat and something they can't quite let go of, which makes him so compelling and hard to pinpoint. Now, Rowan, the woman who should probably have the biggest vendetta against Lasher, continues down a path of inaction, which can get super frustrating to watch. She's clearly conflicted, torn between her duty to protect her family and the bizarre connection she has with Lasher. This is not your typical hero story, where the protagonist is always sure of her actions. Rowan is constantly questioning herself, which leads to her making questionable decisions. like how she's not ready to take the decisive step of killing him. It's clear that she is emotionally and psychologically all over the place and is struggling to reconcile her maternal instincts with her duty to stop him. Her internal struggle with the entity, who also happens to be her son, slows the plot to a snail's pace. She keeps getting distracted by personal side quests, like going to the roof to create a storm or researching Lasher's DNA, which really stalls the main storyline of stopping the entity. There is not that sense of urgency that the situation calls for. It's as if the writers are constantly pulling her in different directions, which makes her character feel less focused and more like a passenger on a runaway train. Instead of being this powerful witch, she often feels lost and helpless, which, while understandable, does not make for the most exciting TV. Moira really shines in this episode, finally stepping into the spotlight with her intelligence and sharp intuition. She sees right through Cyprian's attempts at manipulation, recognizing that he's associated with the Talamasca almost immediately. This shows that she's one of the few characters in the show that actually has some brain power. Cyprian, on his part, tries a more genuine approach, deciding to open his mind to her instead of forcing her to be part of his plans. This is a refreshing change from the usual cloak and dagger methods we've come to expect. His approach highlights his character's honesty and his intention to work with the Mayfairs in a more collaborative way. However, the Talamasca's involvement seems to be creating a new layer of complexity. While they position themselves as the good guys, they are still an organization with their own agenda. Moira's alliance with them, while seemingly beneficial, raises questions about their motives and whether they can actually be trusted. This creates a dynamic where alliances are shifting, and no one's motives are completely clear. The show does a great job of making us wonder if this uneasy partnership will actually help stop Lasher, or simply create more problems down the line. Moira, with her own complex emotional baggage and a determination to bring down the monster that killed her mother, promises to add a lot of intrigue to the story as the series progresses. Then, there's Courtland Mayfair, whose return is as disturbing as it is perplexing. We get a glimpse of his personal hell, a twisted dreamscape where he's tormented by his abusive father, Julian. This scene, while visually gruesome, gives us a little insight into Courtland's messed up psyche. It's a disturbing representation of his inner demons and the cycle of abuse that has plagued his family for generations, which helps explain his cruel and manipulative behavior. While some may see this as a way for him to finally redeem himself, given his dark past, that will probably not happen. The episode does little to explain if his return is tied to Lasher's plan, or if it's just a way to delve into Courtland's inner workings. Either way, it adds another layer of confusion to the narrative. With his manipulative tendencies and shady past, he's not the most reliable character, leaving us wondering if the information he provides is trustworthy or if he's just looking to exploit the situation for his own benefit. As the episode draws to a close, we're left with more questions than answers. The main plots have not progressed in any meaningful way. The characters have become more confused, and Lasher remains elusive. We're left with Rowan still conflicted about killing her own son, but with another death on her conscience, the death of Alicia. Moira, after her mother's death, is more resolute in stopping Lasher. However, despite all the chaos, the episode feels like it didn't progress the plot in any meaningful way, which leaves the viewer feeling that the episode was more of a filler than something truly worthwhile. Courtland's sudden return brings a new player into the mix, though his motives are still unclear. This, combined with Rowan's emotional turmoil and the Talamasca's intervention, creates a very complicated environment, with alliances constantly shifting and loyalties being tested. The final scene leaves us pondering if Rowan will ever get her act together. The episode's ending is a setup for the next one. With so many conflicting narratives and characters pulling in different directions, It feels like the series might buckle under its own weight. The series makes us wonder how these conflicts will resolve, and if the Mayfair witches will be able to overcome their personal demons and their family's dark history. The overarching questions of free will, family legacy, and morality are all still up in the air, leaving us in a state of anxious anticipation. The episode is not giving much in terms of closure, choosing to leave the viewers in a state of limbo. This ending serves as a promise of more chaos to come, which makes us question if this show can tie together all the loose ends it's creating. So, Ten of Swords is definitely an episode that leaves you with a lot to think about, and maybe a little frustrated. It throws a lot at us, but it's not clear if it moves the plot along enough, making us question where the series is going. Despite the confusing plot threads and the messy characters, it's hard to look away from the Mayfair witches and the chaos that surrounds them. Now, I want to hear from you. What did you think of this episode? Are you rooting for the Mayfairs, or is Lasher your favorite character? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more recaps and analyses. And if you want to see more of our chaotic recaps, consider hitting that notification bell so you don't miss our next video.